안녕하세요. 지금 수요일 아침입니다. 어저께 독감 주사 맞았어요. 독감 주사 맞았는데 여기 살짝 뻐근합니다. 근데 어제는 이렇게 안 심했는데 자고 일어나니까는 살짝 뻐근해요. 뭐 그렇게 막 심하게 아프거나 그런 건 아니고. 그다음에 뭐 어떤 사람들은 뭐 어지럽다 아니면은 뭐 감기 몸살 기운이 있는 것 같다, 감기가 오는 것 같다 하는데 저는 아무렇지도 않습니다. 독감 주사 진짜 성인이 되고 나서 처음 맞아본 것 같아요. 그래서 오늘은 스트레칭 좀 하고 팔 운동 안 하고 복근 운동이랑 스쿼트만 좀 하겠습니다. 살짝 피곤합니다. 그래도 운동을 해야지. 오늘 날씨 오늘도 뿌예요.
And you know, Anderson, the contrast is so clear and so stark that you have Trump at a rally like he's always been, and then you have Biden actually giving speeches. And today, his speech in Georgia was about bipartisanship and about unifying America. And you listen to a speech like that in a different way when you don't have a crowd, and you can compare them.
Nia, does it make sense to you that the president's going to Nebraska?
Listen, you know, the congressional districts, you know, they're divided up in that way. So he needs one or two electoral votes. And that, I think, is a testament to how desperate he is down the stretch. He sees the same polls that we see. He sees John King at the map and David Chalian at the map as well. And certainly, I think his internal polls reflect that Joe Biden is a much stronger candidate at this point than Hillary Clinton was 4 years ago.
Nia Malika Henderson, David Gergen, Gloria Borger, thank you very much. Just ahead, the safety of voting in Michigan after a judge's decision regarding the open carry of firearms at polls on Election Day. Also, what President Trump said about an alleged plot against the state's governor when we continue.
All out, driven with determination, dedication, tireless, pushing on, breaking all limits. Giving up is not an option. For your health matters most, so we'll never stop advancing ourselves to be ready for anything. BDMS, your trusted healthcare network.
One of the things that we think will happen post-COVID is a very sharp focus on this idea of purpose. You know, why do companies exist? What is the social agenda they serve? And I think it's very likely you'll wind up into very distinct categories. You're either a hero or you're a villain. People will be looking for companies who do real things for real people.
Wherever you are in the world, Lotte is always close to you. Lotte will be with you throughout the world until the name Lotte is synonymous with friendship. Your lifetime friend, Lotte.
The race ends here. Election night in America. The way only CNN can bring it to you. Welcome to CNN special coverage from the first votes to the critical count.
Joe Biden could win the presidency without winning Ohio.
Understand what's happening in your state and across the country. Watch with the most trusted name in news.
We have a major projection right now.
Election night in America, November 4th on CNN.
This year, if you want to vote by mail, you can do so in 44 states. To ensure that everyone has a say in who becomes president of all 50.
I'm David Culver in Shanghai, China, and this is CNN.
spending too much time on scene.
Those were the kids really struggling to get away.
They feel like they won't be able to outrun the war.
They thought the whole border was open.
People are just trying to bust through towards what they think is going to be a better life. These nurses, these doctors really have nerves of steel.
You can't help but be struck by how interconnected our world is.
Arwa Damon, CNN. I'm Misa Suarez in London, and this is CNN.
President Trump's first campaign stop of the day in Michigan again featured attacks against the state's governor, Gretchen Whitmer, this time casting doubt about what federal and state authorities say was an extremist group and its plot to kidnap Whitmer and overthrow several state governments.
Your governor, I don't think she likes me too much. Hey, I'm the one. It was our people that helped her out with her problem. I mean, we'll have to see if it's a problem, right? People are entitled to say maybe it was a problem, maybe it wasn't.
Again, the president's own Justice Department, our people, as he says this happened. His own Justice Department. His comments also come the same day as a Michigan judge struck down a state directive banning the open carry of firearms at polling places on Election Day. The judge said the ban ran afoul of regulations that govern how state laws are to be enacted. We're going to talk about it. Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel. Madam Attorney General, appreciate you being here. When you hear the president yet again downplaying and casting doubt on the plot against Governor Whitmer, how do you respond?
I don't know what we can possibly say about a president who claims to be pro-law and order and yet seems to be making excuses and justifications for those who are engaged in domestic terrorism, and who the allegations are that they hatched a plot to kidnap and then execute our sitting governor. I don't know what to say about anyone who does that, let alone the commander-in-chief who runs our country. It's a really disturbing set of circumstances for sure.
I mean, he seems to not only want to downplay it, but which is maybe an excuse because he, talked about liberating Michigan. He praised the armed, wannabe warriors who stormed the Michigan State House, threatening legislators and police officers and screaming in their faces, and Trump said they, were patriotic people, fine people. But he's also, on the other hand, taking credit for federal authorities thwarting it, even though his own attorney general has not, gotten in front of this and made the announcement and really talked about it, though he has talked about, Antifa as if they are some, well-organized domestic, terror threat, which, they may be awful people. I don't know, but the evidence is against these guys in Michigan and elsewhere, and he's downplaying.
Yeah, I mean, it's really very concerning when you have groups out there like the Boogaloo Boys, like the Wolverine Watchmen, like the Proud Boys, and it seems as though the president is their biggest fan. I mean, it's no wonder that we've seen the exponential rise in membership of these organizations when you have a president of the United States that seemed to support them.
At the same rally in Lansing today, the president said that he's saving suburbia and then seemed to try to reach out, I guess in his mind, to female voters. And I just want to listen to how he did that.
You know what else? I'm also getting your husbands. They want to get back to work, right? They want to get back to work. We're getting your husbands back to work.
I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know if I'm nitpicking, but he's obviously struggling with suburban women, and he's, made the allegation that, subsidized housing is going to be forced into suburban neighborhoods, and Cory Booker is going to be the one who's in charge of it, and it's going to destroy your neighborhood, which is clearly, a dog whistle, racist overtones or undertones. But telling women, who he's referred to as suburban housewives before, that their husbands are going to be able to get back to work, it's sort of an antiquated vision.
Yeah, I think that's an understatement to say that it's an antiquated vision. The president is polling incredibly poorly with suburban women in Michigan and I think across the United States. And I have to say that it was suburban women who in large part were responsible for putting women in the offices of governor, attorney general, and secretary of state here in the state of Michigan. And I think it's going to be those same women that come out in very large numbers to support Joe Biden for president.
So now a judge in Michigan has struck down the directive that sought to ban the open carry of firearms at polling places on Election Day. So what implications do you think that has for Tuesday?
Well, first of all, I fully support our Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, in providing that guidance. The vast majority of Michiganders do not want to be faced with guns at the polls, and even the United States Supreme Court has said in previous decisions that, you know, the polls should be an island of calm where voters can peacefully contemplate their candidates that they want to vote for. And their biggest decision should be who to vote for and how to fully pull out the oval next to their name. They shouldn't be worried about the guy who's watching them or standing next to them that's got an AR-15 slung over his shoulder. So we absolutely intend to appeal this decision. We think that the guidance was properly and legally issued, but irrespective of that, you know, we have very strong voter intimidation laws in the state. It's a felony. And so we plan to pursue any and all efforts to suppress voters, to deter voters from the polls based on any kinds of threats or intimidation, irrespective of what happens with this particular matter.
Dan Nessel, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Just ahead, the false reality that Trump is trying to create as he fights to win this election, and our next guest says undermine our democratic norms. Conversation with legendary chess player and human rights activist Garry Kasparov next.
Blizzard. Hey, Charles Barkley.
Jake Tapper here.
I'm fortunate to have a role in this world
where I get to use my voice.
Well, come November 3rd, every American gets to use their voice.
To vote. To vote.
To vote.
It requires no words at all.
But will be heard forever.
No matter where in the world you live.
Or how you do it.
Please.
Please. Please. Let your voice be heard.
Have been saying unprecedented throughout history, and I don't know if they're 100% getting it right whenever they use that term, but truly what we've seen has been unprecedented, from the stocking up early on to the second kind of surge of demand now that we're seeing, especially in non-food products and cleaning products. It has been a few wild months for all of retail, and especially for us here at Bob. Retail is already a very difficult business. With that said, though, the folks that can invest into e-commerce, that can invest into changing how the stores are used, I think those folks are actually going to come and emerge even stronger. Automation, like the stuff that you see behind me right now, it's not only for us to be able to provide efficiency so that we can offer even lower prices to the customer, but you're going to see actually what we're finding is that there's less physical touches of these boxes, up to 20% less humans touch the boxes, and you can make the argument that automation not only saves money, but also provides a safer environment to get some of these boxes out the door.
졸려.
seeing is 25 years of gains in vaccinations has been erased in 25 weeks. The drop in vaccination rates is profound. Vaccines save lives. And so we have to get through this time of disinformation. We will have at some point a safe and efficacious vaccine. And I think once it starts to be delivered and people start to see other people taking it and being able to go back on with their normal daily life, then you'll see the vaccination rates start to rise again. What we know is, though, to get out of a crisis like this takes absolutely global cooperation. I think the right thing for us to do is to continue to talk about our values and talk about science and where the truth is.
I'm to Quest at London's Heathrow Airport, and this is CNN.
Much of President Trump's campaign strategy relies on the need to create a false reality, that mail-in voter fraud is rampant, he says, or that the ballots counted after Election Day are phony, or that coronavirus case counts and rising deaths and hospitalizations are fake. The doctors are making it up so they can get more money. The U.S. is just fine. It's rounding the turn, as the president says. Therefore, as we noted earlier, the administration can cite as an accomplishment ending the COVID-19 pandemic, which they haven't. Also, the vaccines will be here in weeks, or if not weeks, then by year's end. It's all part of the intentional deception familiar to my next guest, who grew up in the Soviet Union, and says this is how immoral leaders in other countries seek to undermine democratic institutions, by slowly chipping away at reality and promoting those around them willing to believe his version of it. Perspective now from former world chess champion Garry Kasparov, a Russian pro-democracy leader and chairman of the Human Rights Foundation. Gary, one of the things I've heard you say recently is I thought it was so interesting and important, and it's similar to something Tom Friedman had said to me a while ago, but that one of the things you said is that we've learned over the last 4 years that just how much of our democracy is not enshrined in laws, written laws. It's based on honor. It's based on tradition, what Tom Friedman described as being norms. And I think that's such an important thing to think about, because the honor, the traditions, that is what is being subverted, even if the Constitution itself is not being upended.
Oh, absolutely. That's why I don't buy arguments as recently used by Trump and his GOP enablers that it's not unconstitutional when they talk, for instance, about the recent appointment in Supreme Court. Because many things, are not unconstitutional because they're simply not mentioned there. But that's why we're talking not about the letter of the law, but also about the spirit of the law, and also about norms and traditions. And I warned about Trump's gradually removing them from his way back in 2016, because that's what's typically done. It's not, a coup overnight. It's a slow motion process of destroying checks and balances. And as you can see, Trump removed all the people that were loyal to the state, to Constitution, to American democracy, and he replaced them with enablers. And that's why you look at the Trump's White House and his supporters in other branches of government, and they more than they're loyal to American Constitution and to the very base of American democracy that with presidents, Democrats, Republicans over 200 plus years stayed intact.
And it's one of the things that I think is so interesting about what you're saying is that it's not overnight there are armored personnel carriers surrounding the White House and moving in on television stations, as happens in some places when there's a coup, but that democracy can die in a much longer, tiny baby steps, that at the time, good people who are legislators go along with small, tiny steps thinking, okay, well, you give a politician this and then they'll stop, and then it's only once you've kind of gone down the road and done a bunch of little baby steps that you suddenly turn around and realize, wait a minute, we're in a whole different place.
Absolutely, and that's why I believe these elections are so important. It's probably one of the most important elections in American history, because it's not just about Trump or Biden. It's not about Republicans or Democrats. It's about the way the government is functions and the way that the power is being transferred from one president to another if incumbent loses elections. And it seems to me that Trump is determined to use every trick in the book, and even to go beyond that, to stay in power at any cost. And it's quite unfortunate that many of his supporters in GOP, who probably had reservations about Trump's behavior, they turned into his enablers. And if in 2016 Trump's election confirmed his political style, his re-election will confirm his political practices.
One other thing you said before I go is, I wrote it down because I thought it was a great line. You said, I don't know much about chess, but I understood what you were saying. You said, saving your king from being mated in two doesn't mean that you win the game. That basically it's a long game, that this is not just about voting in this election.
No, but yes, but let's remember, saving your king from the mate in two is a top priority. So that's why winning elections this time, so for Biden being elected, is a #1 priority, because if this game is lost, then it's the consequences. I think it's very hard to imagine. But even if Biden is elected and if Democrats flip the Senate, it's just the beginning of the long road, because Trump could be defeated, but Trumpism, the idea that you can turn the corners and you can bend the law at your convenience using every loophole that you can find in the books, will be very much alive. Trump's success will enable more Trumps, whether from the right or from the left, to repeat this experiment. And we should be aware that new Trumps will be coming, and they will be younger, they will be more dynamic, more intelligent, not obese, and younger, and not corrupt. And it's very important that that's after November 4th. Hopefully, the results will be already announced. So we'll work hard, and that's what I believe RDI, our organization, the Democracy Initiative, will be doing. It's to start building the new firewalls against potential Trumpism revival.
Gary Kasparov, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
President Trump has one more stop to make before he finishes his campaign day. He'll hold a rally in Omaha, Nebraska. There's a live shot of the crowd right now. There is exactly one presidential delegate at state in Omaha. The question you're likely to ask is, well, why is he going there? We'll explain ahead.
All out, driven with determination, endless dedication, tireless, pushing on, breaking all limits. Giving up is not an option. For your health matters most, so we'll never stop advancing ourselves to be ready for anything. BDMS, your trusted healthcare network.
Welcome to The Lead. I'm Jake Tapper.
The straight talk you need.
That seems to be completely contradicting.
From your man in Washington.
We're getting a new look at the headwinds that congressional Republicans already are facing.
The Lead with Jake Tapper. Tuesday through Saturday on CNN.
This is CNN. More people get their news from CNN than any other news source.
여기까지 좀 하겠습니다. 다시 한 30분만 자야겠어.